Hi everyone, my name is Indira and I am a first year student here at the University of Southern California, and today I will be reading you my general comment application from the honors that I put and the extracurriculars that I put, as well as a personal essay question that I answered. Just to give you all a little more background as to my application process, mainly my stats, I applied with a 4.32 GPA at the time. It was cumulative, so it wasn't weighted or unweighted. So I think I just put 4.0 unless it asks for the general GPA. I also applied test optional, so I did not submit my ACT scores at all. I guarantee you it does not penalize you for merit scholarships or any scholarships. So if you don't feel that your ACT or SAT is up to par with the average of the school, don't be afraid to go test optional. I applied to 13 colleges. I got rejected from one of them, waitlisted from a whole bunch of them, and accepted from some more. And I will put all of those colleges on the next slide so you can see that. So I'm going to begin with my extracurricular sections, which is pulled up on my iPad because I cannot remember what I wrote a year ago. A really important piece of advice that someone shared with me when filling out my entire common application process was thinking of it as a dating application, especially the extracurriculars. What is something that you want people to know about you that is meaningful to you, but also showcases you in a way to where you can amplify yourself as a candidate? And so that really helped me in filling out all 10 spots of the extracurriculars, starting with my cultural organization. It was called NOLA Empower Latinx. It was a community organization that my sister and I co-founded. I started this in 2020, so my co-founder leadership role was 2020. My digital graphics designer leadership role is 2020 through present, and I put school break throughout the entire year, 1.5 hours a week for 40 weeks a year. Don't ever be afraid to, if you think that you're putting way too much hours or you think that you're exaggerating the weeks, if it is true, then put it, because that is authentic to you. Something that I was concerned about, I always have extracurriculars that run really long, especially robotics, which will be the third one. And again, don't be afraid to put, if it's authentic to you, if you're spending a lot of time on it for a lot of weeks, don't be afraid to put it, because again, that is something that you are committed to and dedicated to, and it shows. But for that specific one, to the NOLA Empower Latinx one, I described it as designing posts with voting registration / college resources, Latinx spotlights, including people and businesses, 300 plus followers, including Representative Carmen Perez, who is also known as Miss Lady Justice. When you're doing your descriptions for your extracurriculars, you want to make sure that they're in present tense too. My second one was student government. I did student council from 9th through 12th grade. It was a school organization. I did it around about 2 hours a week for 26 weeks a year. My leadership roles, I was executive board president my 12th grade year. I was executive board vice president, but I put VP because of the character limit, my 11th grade year. And I described it as coordinating homecoming / prom 2022, designing spirit posters / head coordinated logo toys for tots, 50 plus gifts, and led school supply drive 1,456 items. You want to quantify yourself and your data as much as possible, because it's extra evidence to your dedication and the significant impact that not only it had on yourself, but who you were serving in that community. And so quantify as much as possible if you can. My third activity was robotics. Robotics, this one specifically was new, but it was still impactful for me and important. That's why it's in my top 3. I put co-founder, and I also put software lead, and it was Trinity Force Robotics, FRC Team 8732. I did it for about 3 hours a week for 30 weeks, which ended up being a little bit more. It was about 12 hours a week for 32 weeks maybe. I described it as attending bi-weekly software trainings, writing FRC team grants, cover letters, financial plans to fund indie merch supplies, or registering for events. My fourth activity, I did TV production, which was also the morning broadcasting team, so morning announcements. I did it in my 11th and 12th grade year for 1.5 hours a week. So that was about, I want to say 25 minutes a day in the morning or 36 weeks a year. So the entirety of the school year. I described it as miking up / cueing announcers, playing intro / audio to alma mater, and Pledge of Allegiance / broadcasting necessary graphics and announcing school news on live television. My leadership roles was I was an announcer in my 11th and 12th grade year. I was the producer my 12th grade year, and I was, that's it. Sorry. But morning announcements, it's very, maybe a little minimalistic to some people, but to me it was still important because it enhanced my camera skills, and that's something that I talk about and something that's a future aspiration of mine. And so it's important to me, and therefore it's in my top 5. So if it's important to you, don't even question it and put in your top activities, because again, that's you and all applications are different. For my 5th activity, I put 4-H, specifically 4-H junior leaders within my parish, which is county. I live in Louisiana. I did 4-H my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year. It was a community thing because my school didn't have it. And I did it for 1.5 hours a week for 20 weeks an hour. 20 weeks. Not 20 weeks an hour. 20 weeks a year. I described it as coordinating service events. And so those service events very much added more hours, but the general hours is what I put. So example, Christmas senior citizen luncheons, and I also put one of my achievements at the time, or current achievement, 2021 Southern Region Leadership Conference Ambassador, and I put in parentheses 1 of 35 selected in the state of Louisiana. And that is true. If you can fit in accomplishments, so it's not too overbearing when it comes to your, so you don't have to be indecisive when it comes to describing your honors. You can, that's another option. I also put it here. My next one is Wildcats Invested in Saving the Environment, also known as WISE. It is a club that one of my friends and I started my 11th grade year, end of 11th grade year. And I was a co-director for the 2021-2022 school year. We did it for about, again, 1.5 hours a week for 14 weeks a year. And it included writing propositions, organizing meetings, cleanups, appointing officers, reinstalled recycling program, and implemented first greenhouse in school history. The next activity was another environmental activity. It was called the Youth Climate Action Coalition, which is something that I did over COVID. I was a member my 10th and 12th grade year, so the majority of it was early beginnings of COVID, mid-COVID year, and I was a writer-editor my 10th and 11th grade year. It was I want to say, during my hybrid schedule for COVID. I did it 2 hours a week, 10 weeks a year, and I was, again, quantifying myself and my candidacy. I was one of 4 selected to be a writer on the journalism team, 150 plus applicants, writing climate activism articles, 16 specifically. I have all the articles to back it up, and I wrote those for monthly newsletters that had 100 plus subscribers. My next activity is actually a work job that I did the summer prior to applying for college. It was for the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association. I was a lead kindergarten camp counselor, and I did that over the break, 40 hours a week for 10 weeks. Best days and semi-worst days of my life, but I absolutely love the job, and that's why I still included it here. It also shows my dedication and ability to interact with kids. The description that I put was designing daily crafts, STEM and recreational activities, 11 to 30 kids. It varied depending on the week, but again, I'm quantifying my data. In this scenario, the kids that I was in charge of looking out for, and therefore I also put ensuring kids' safety in and out of the pool, and debriefing parents on campers' behavior. That was another thing, because I was a lead camp counselor. I was responsible for telling parents about their kids in case there was an issue, or just reassuring them that they did an amazing week at camp. After that, I put tennis. The reason I didn't put tennis in the beginning, I love tennis, absolutely love it, but it's just something that my activities before then, I absolutely took more priority than tennis at the time. I was a tennis varsity doubles player my 10th through 11th grade year, and was just a JV player my 9th grade year. And we did it in the spring semester for 6 hours a week for 16 weeks per year. Obviously, I ran a little more because of the competitions and the tournaments that we had. I put leading warm-ups, self-fundraising for team equipment and competitions, quantifying my data. I put $210, 9 through 11. And again, I put more accomplishments, so I'm not deciding, which accomplishments should I put for the honors section. I put all district and all league doubles honorable mention my 11th grade year, which was ultimately the last year that I played tennis for the school. And last but not least, I put Mu Alpha Theta. I did Mu Alpha Theta my 9th through 12th grade year, but again, it's not an activity that took priority, so I put it last. I did it 5 hours a week for 4 weeks, and that mainly took place because of the competitions. I was vice president from 2021 to 2022 school year, and the description was recruiting members, 20 plus, coordinating competitions, placed 3rd place in team division for Nichols University and Catholic High School tournaments. Again, putting my accomplishments within that activity, so that way it shows that I had a dedication to it and I was also successful within it. And those are my extracurriculars. So, as I previously stated in my extracurricular section, I implemented honors specific to that activity. So that way I had more space in the actual honors section to put certificates or awards that weren't related to them at all. And so I put, at the time, because I changed it a lot depending if it was the November 1st or the January deadline, but this section that I'm about to read to you ended up the one I used for most of my colleges that I applied to. I said that I was a 2022 Coca-Cola Scholar semifinalist. I ended up being a regional finalist, yay, which was a national award, and it was when I got my senior year. I also put AP Scholar, which was again a national award that I got my junior year. I was a Patrick F. Taylor Scholar, which was a state regional award. I was a Patrick F. Taylor Scholar from my freshman to my senior year. I also put my Adobe certification for Photoshop. It's something that's important to me, and I think that having that industry certificate really stands out. And that was a school national one, technically. I didn't know. There wasn't a section for like industry based. So I put school national, and I put it my junior year, my 11th grade year. And then I also put young authors I placed in young authors for my school and my state level, but I put my state and regional level because it was just higher up, even though I didn't place as high as my school level. But I put 1st place poetry and 2nd place nonfiction 9th grade year, and 3rd place poetry 10th grade year. I put it all in one section. Even though I had a limited character amount, I still wanted to show that I won multiple times in multiple years, a state regional award, and again, 9th and 10th grade year. Now for the fun, not so fun part during this time, the writing personal essay. Quick story time about my writing. I started days before the November 1st deadline, which was the early action deadline to many of my colleges, and I think it was the Thursday before the November 1st deadline, and I will never do it again. My mentor and I went through 7 drafts in a matter of days, and it was arduous. So the moral of the story is, please get ahead of your supplements, your personal essay, your scholarship essays, whatever it may be, ahead of time, so that it's just easier for yourself and you have that stress off of your shoulders, because I can guarantee you from personal experience, it does not feel well. But in the end of the day, I did do it. And if you are procrastinating, I still believe in you. You got this. It's just going to be a lot hard. But the prompt that I answered was, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe the application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. I am satisfied with the final draft of my version. The first draft that you write for your Common App essay will not be your last. That is just inevitable. You want to go through that feedback process with a writer, a trusted English teacher, or a mentor, so that you can have the best essay possible that speaks to you and your experience. Ay, Dios mío, exclaimed my mom. They're gone. I looked into the mirror at my eyebrows, or more accurately, lack thereof. I was in 4th grade, and the idea of thin arches was enthralling. My classmates, teachers, heck, even Disney Channel's protagonists had them. I didn't. My eyebrows were longer, thicker, and more defined. I was never satisfied with them. In an attempt to groom my brows to thin perfection, I shaved them off. I justified my solution as a necessary measure to conceal my bushy brows. In retrospect, I inadvertently relinquished a characteristic of my ethnicity. Having thick brows is a prominent feature of being Latina, specifically Nicaragüense, and yet I still yearned for narrow arches. The pattern of suppressing my culture didn't end with my brows. Substitute teachers introduced 1,243 ways to mispronounce my name. India, Indra, Indira, Anita. The list is endless. I felt guilty that my name was such a burden, hence not correcting them. When my mother conversed in Spanish at Walmart, I responded in English to not seem out of place. However, it wasn't always this way. From birth until I was 4, I lived in Nicaragua. Every morning, I would indulge in Fino Dio. Every afternoon was a trip to Mimi's house where I would devour her gallo pinto, and every night, I would cry out for a glass of Nesquik. On winter weekends, my dad would take my sister and me to Leon, home of La Gigontana. As the beat of the drums crescendoed, the 9-foot woman would dance. Shortly after, my sister and I would join in her twirls. But when I immigrated to the States, I stopped dancing to the marimba as La Gigontona does. I stopped cherishing my Nicaraguan roots. And then, in 9th grade, I found myself running for civics class president. When my opponent delivered his campaign letter to the class, he ended it by talking about me. She wasn't even born in this country. Where is the proof that she's legal? His words rendered me speechless. Every fiber in my being wanted to cry, but just before the lumps in my throat could form, it was my turn to speak. I ripped up my original speech. It felt dinky. I needed to do more than promise bonus points. Instead, I told my peers that my opponent was right. I wasn't born here. I flew here at 4 years old with my sister, thinking we were going to Disney World. In actuality, we were coming to live with my mom and stepdad. It was hard. I didn't speak any English, and the only family I recognized was my sister, my mom, and my grandma. The local markets from Nicaragua didn't exist here, so all the food tasted unorthodox. When I entered school, English remained a foreign language. In kindergarten, instead of napping, I would count apples with my teacher to master America's dialect. Standing at the civics podium, I was frightened. I was sharing details I'd never told any of my classmates before, but suddenly the inferiority that my opponent wanted me to feel didn't exist. Instead, as I recounted my story and reminisced about the dualities of the two worlds I was navigating, I felt empowered. I realized that my immigrant journey required a strength that only resides in my Latin blood, mi cultura. Now, as I walk the halls of my overwhelmingly white school, I no longer hide the brilliance and beauty that comes from being a brown girl. I make my voice heard as the only person of color on 2 of my school's executive boards. I amplify the voices of my local Latinx community through NOLA Empowered Latinx, an organization I co-founded. I don't let substitutes mispronounce my name anymore. I speak Spanish in Walmart, sometimes. I am phenomenally Latina, and I'll forever have my fake eyebrows to prove it. Along with my personal essay, I also wrote under the community disruption and additional information section. A lot of people tend to skip this section because they might not know what to put. Mine was very obvious because I went through a hurricane as I was doing the college application process, and so I'll read my community disruption first. On August 29, 2021, Hurricane Ida struck the river parishes of Louisiana as a Category 4 hurricane. The storm destroyed anything in sight: power lines, roof shingles, and homes. St. Charles Parish, my home, was deemed uninhabitable. For 4 weeks, my neighborhood was without power, AC, internet, or running water. My family was fortunate enough compared to many of the neighbors who lost everything. Still, we were unable to evacuate, leaving me riddled with anxiety for my current situation and also for my future, current situation being the college application process. My school, Dasher High School, was closed for 6 straight weeks, leaving me without internet or a reliable power source. Without those resources, I was unable to access my college applications, write my supplemental essays, or email my recommenders. Once school opened, it got better, but has still been challenging. My school's building is still severely damaged, so I have to attend school on a hybrid schedule. One day is asynchronous learning done at home, while the other is in person at the high school across the river, Hahnville High School. It's an extra 15-minute drive. I have made sure to prioritize my college dreams and not let Hurricane Ida jeopardize my future, but that doesn't mean it was easy. Last but not least, I have the additional information section, which is one of the most personal things on my common application, mainly because it was so recent during the time that it happened. It occurred during the beginning of my junior year into April, the year following. And because of it, I was hospitalized, and that prevented me from taking standardized test scores such as the pre-SAT, which qualifies you for a lot of merit scholarships. I couldn't take as many standardized tests because I couldn't go out as much because I had a compromised immune system, and I had to prioritize my health first. And I'm basically explaining why I'm going test optional and just showing the admissions officers that, hey, this is something that happened to me. It's something that is very impactful and affected my schoolwork, and in this scenario being the standardized test scores. So without further ado, on August 22nd, 2020, I was hospitalized for acute thrombocytopenia, which is also a condition where you have low blood platelet counts. Days before I noticed red dots on my skin, I slept for days at time concerned as to what they were. These dots were called petechiae, brown-purple spots due to bleeding under the skin. They appeared throughout my body and were a dead giveaway to my diagnosis of acute ITP, along with the bruises on my stomach. Fortunately, I responded to medications I was given, but my recovery wasn't simple. Dr. Farge's recovery plan for me consisted of weekly blood work for 8 months to track my platelet count. At times, the results were signs of progress, with my platelets nearing 100,000, but other times they were disheartening, with my count reverting to 20,000 or less. Within those 8 months, I had to be very careful of small things that, with my condition, could cause major bleeding, like paper cuts, bumping into table corners, and even brushing my teeth. I had to give up running, one of my favorite extracurriculars, stay in bed a lot, and attend monthly checkups. I also had to prioritize my health over some of my schoolwork. For instance, my ACT scores were not the best during this time, but it was all worth it because after 8 months of focusing on my health, I was declared thrombocytopenia free. Since then, I've had so much energy. I'm back to running, I'm working on improving my standardized test scores, and I've been able to focus on my common applications. So that concludes me reading the common application, the main parts of it in regards to myself, and I hope that you find some type of inspiration from it. Remember that it does not have to be exactly like mine, structure-wise, word-wise, experience-wise. It should not be, because every person has a different story, different experiences, and it should speak to the authenticity of those experiences within yourself and what you want the college applications and admissions officers to know about you. So thanks again for watching.